Today we're going to be talking about the difference between homebrewing classes and homebrewing archetypes. So the first key thing that you gotta ask yourself is, what is the difference? Well, a class is a full character that you are creating, where archetype is just a path that a character can pursue. So for example, if you're creating an archetype for a fighter, you are going to be creating something that a fighter can branch off in, that is unique, something that isn't seen through conventional means, and that is by then unique, impactful, and cool in the run of things. I have two examples right here of archetypes. The archetype on the left is the Gunslinger class that was created by the very popular DM of Critical Role, Matthew Mercer. You can see his disclaimer here on it. This was released to the public for their own use, and this is something that's been in the works for a very long time. It is seen on Critical Role, and it is very effective. On the right, you see an archetype for the rogue known as the Shadow Dancer. This is a non-professional who has taken the time to create something that is quite well balanced and unique. We're going to go over the two archetypes here to hopefully explain the differences between why they're archetypes and not full-out classes. Now, the easiest one is actually going to be explained with the Gunslinger. So why is the Gunslinger an archetype and not a full-out class? Well, the reason that the Gunslinger is not a full-out class, because if it was, that's just a ranger. At the end of the day, okay, why be a Gunslinger when I can be a ranger, especially with Arcana bringing out the revised ranger? And the simple solution is warriors, they are more spread out when it comes to their techniques. Not all warriors use a sword. Not all warriors use a shield. Some warriors use weapons at range. They're not rangers. They do not use magic to imbue their bows and their arrows, snare traps, or take befriend animal companions. They are 100% non-magical human beings who are proficient in an art through years of practice. A gunslinger is someone who is proficient in the use of firearms. In the normal Dungeons and Dragons world, in most worlds, firearms don't exist. And the firearms that do exist in some worlds are not as modern as people generally think. And thus, they are very hard to craft, maintain, and use. Someone like a ranger is not going to typically have something like a rifle because it's just generally not seen in the world. The main unique thing about bringing the gunslinger into the world is it brings a purpose for the firearms to exist in the world. Even more so with how powerful they can be and how technologically advanced they are. Not only does the gunslinger know how to use them, but the gunslinger knows how to build them, maintain them, and craft their ammo specifically. For campaigns that really track ammo, some people just, yeah, you have arrows, but other people go, no, you have 3 rounds, so the gunslinger has to be careful. Well, do I want to use this round now, or can I save it for later? In a campaign I'm currently playing as, I am running a level 3 gunslinger, I believe, maybe a level 4. I can't remember. And but basically, she uses a sniper rifle, but she also has a bow and arrow. And the reason she has a bow and arrow is because she has a quiver of 20 arrows, but she only has 2 sniper rifle rounds. She used one in the last encounter that happened last session. So since it's such a scarce resource, it's powerful. It's not going to be seen often, and it's a strategic standpoint that really makes the fighter's tacticalness stand out, because unlike rangers rely on nature, magic, the environment to help them out. Fighters use it 100% on the skills that they have trained themselves to use. So when you go through something like the archetype here, it's talking about smithing the weapons, your firearm proficiency, doing different types of shots, aiming for specifically a head or a torso, reloading, being proficient in that, your accuracy, being able to draw a lot faster. These are things that rangers don't need to worry about, because when a ranger fires their arrow, generally it's going to go where they want it anyways, and they're being stealthier as it is, whereas a gunslinger is not going to be necessarily stealthy. They can be, but once they're heard, the action starts. And just because you're a gunslinger does not mean you're not going to have a sword and shield, because sometimes melee combat is the best option. So not only does this give the fighter an option to fight in melee combat, but it also gives them the option to fight at range, which brings a lot of utility and strategy to the board. Which is why it's an archetype. Because if you made the gunslinger just a full-out class, all of a sudden it's just a better version of a ranger in most people's eyes, or it's a ranger that doesn't use magic. And that kind of defeats the purpose of it, considering how good the revised ranger actually is. And for someone who maybe doesn't want this type of technology in the world, they're not going to want someone to dedicate so much time into a class for something that's not going to exist. Whereas with this archetype, it's a little bit more reasonable, because in the world, as the fighter, they're able to at least learn, they're able to try new things, and over experience be able to craft these weapons, this technology. And that's where it goes through with that archetype. You look over at the roguish archetype here, and rogues in the current game are very, you have the path where you can be trickstery, and then you have the path where you can kind of be like pure assassin. And this is kind of a more stealthy approach, because despite the rogue being generally a stealthy class, they don't have a lot of stealth tools, which is rather weird. They have a lot of evasion techniques, they have a lot of ways to avoid damage, and their mobility is pretty decent, but they don't have anything that actually directly impacts their stealth. And since rogues are seen to be these stealthy people, it only seems natural to have an archetype that improves how stealthy they are. Enter something like a shadow dancer. You are giving the class a path to be more stealthy. They may not be able to do as much damage, thus because of their exterior vision, the capability to dance around targets, to stay in the shadows. However, they are able to bring a lot more to the table again. This really opens up the option for that hardcore thief, that the even different paths. You don't necessarily have to go like that, but the main point is when you're going for an archetype, pick an idea and expand on it. There's a few steps that you should do. The first step is pick the class that you want to make an archetype with. You pick Rogue. What are the strong points of Rogue? What are the weak points of Rogue? Well, the strong points of Rogue is as they level up, they have the capability of doing a lot of damage fast, but they don't really feel like a rogue at that point because they're always seen. They don't have a very lot of tools to keep themselves hidden. Much like fighter, the good points about a fighter is they can hit really hard and they can take a lot of hits, but you're pretty much forced to be this constant front line, which can get boring. And the one thing that you don't want is for, as your character to level up, it get boring. That's the whole point of these homebrewed archetypes, is bring something unique to the class that the class normally does not see. Not everyone wants to be a ranger. Not everyone wants to be a sorcerer. So by giving other classes options to fulfill those similar roles, it creates a unique play style that is fun, intriguing, and powerful, which is the main point. You don't want something to be so weak that it's not played. And at the end of the day, if you're having fun, that's all that matters. I love the gunslinger. It's such a different play style I've personally never played with, because even as playing as a ranger, it's always just kind of been, yeah, I fire, I hit, all right, next turn. But with the path of the gunslinger I'm going, where I'm trying to be a sniper, I'm strategizing my shots, I'm picking out my targets, I'm communicating with the team to give signals, and it's incredible how different it is. So let's recap. what is the difference between a class and an archetype? A class is a full-out character that is unique and isn't seen in conventional means in the game. An archetype is a different path that a existing character is able to take to change up the playstyle in a fun, unique way that's at the same time not overpowered or underpowered. It's to give the class different options, something that will draw the eyes of a new player into trying something they may not necessarily try. So when you're creating an archetype, just remember it's easier to create an archetype than it is to create a class. So if you're trying to get used to homebrewing, perhaps start with some archetypes. And sometimes you'll find as you're making, let's say, a Shadow Dancer here, that it doesn't seem strong enough just like this. But maybe you think it can be a full-out class. By making aspects of an archetype, you can actually see things that would make a good class and give inspiration to make actual classes. And as far as from making homebrew classes, I have another video posted on the channel here, the link will be in the description below, of explaining the process of creating a homebrewed class. But I'm just going to end it here. This is just a short little explanation of the differences between a class and an archetype. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or if you just want to leave some feedback, please leave it in the description down below. It helps a lot. As a growing dungeon master, I want to share as much knowledge as I can, and if you're able to give me knowledge, then that's only going to improve my campaigns, and it's only going to improve your learning experience. So until next time.